Yep.
Alright, this is pre-trip C. Start at the top rail. You can see there's no damage from low-hanging objects like tree limbs. All rivets are present. Come down here to the header board. The header board has no holes in it, which would damage your freight. All rivets are present. Right here is your air inflation light. It's clear in color. No cracks in the moisture, properly mounted. If it comes on, stays on more than 10 minutes, then you have an air leak in your trailer somewhere. You need to take it to the shop as soon as possible. Registration box inside is your registration. This box keeps it's weatherproof and keeps water out. Up at the top, amber clearance light. It's properly mounted, no cracks in the moisture. Looking at the top rail all the way down. Looking at the side panel all the way down. And looking at the bottom rail all the way down. All rivets are present. You see no damage to any of them. Here on the bottom rail, you got white and red DOT reflective tape. It's all properly mounted. None of it's ripped or peeling. Landing gear. All of it's properly mounted. All nuts and bolts are tight and present. There's a crank arm that controls your low and high speed. All welds are intact. Sand shoes are not bent, broke, or cracked. In between your landing gear, you have a frame, K-frame, sometimes known. And also this looks more like an X, but all welds are present, intact, and all bolts are tight. Under here is your floor. It's properly mounted. There's no holes in the floor. It's all supported by cross members. These cross members are properly mounted. They're not bent, broke, or cracked, and none are loose or hanging. As we move on down here to the center of the trailer, you have your belly light. It's amber in color. It's properly mounted. No cracks, no moisture. This particular one acts as your left turn signal, your four ways, and running lights. Let's see. We have air filter, an inline air filter. All lines are in good condition. No cuts, no frays here, no leaks. This is a new item for the new trailers. Here we have our electrical and air lines. They're all properly mounted with spring hangers. No cuts, no frays, no bare wire. Here, no leaks. We'll go up under here. All right. You got your airbags, 2 of them. They're properly mounted. No abrasions, blisters, or cuts. Here, no leaks. In the center is your shock absorber. It's properly mounted. Not bent, broken, cracked, see no leaks. Your air lines. No cuts, no frays, here no leaks, they're properly mounted. They go into the brake chambers. These brake chambers are properly mounted, they're not bent, broken, cracked, they're held together with a band clamp. Out the back of these brake chambers is a push rod. The push rod is straight, it's not bent, broken, cracked, it's properly mounted to the slack adjuster with pin and keys. And when the brakes are released in the cab, they when pulled by hand, this push rod and that slack adjuster cannot have more than 1 inch of travel. Now we move on into the inner hub. The inner hub is intact. It's not bent, broke, cracked. See no leaks. If it was leaking, you would have fluid dripping here. You got your brake shoes. Brake shoes are properly mounted. They're not worn dangerously thin. They're not bent, broke, cracked. See no contaminants between it and the drum. The drum also is properly mounted. It's not bent, broke, cracked. No bluing. No contaminants. Properly mounted. After that is your butted rims. You can see in between here, the butted rims, there's no daylight in between these 2 rims. They're properly mounted. The rims are not bent, broken, cracked, and there's no debris in between your sidewalls of your 2 tires. The inner hub is not leaking, as we said. You come out here to the outer hub, it is also not leaking. It has a sight glass, so you can monitor the level of the fluid. Here you can see that it's nice and full. You want to make sure that it's a golden fluid. You don't want any milky, iced coffee looking crap in there. And down here you'll see it's leaking if there's a puddle in the rim. These rims are not bent, broke, or cracked. They're making a proper seal to the bead of the tire. You got 2 tires, 4 sidewalls, 2 inner and 2 outer sidewalls. No abrasions, blisters, or cuts on the sidewalls. And the tread is wearing evenly. There's no embedded objects in these tread other than like rocks, which doesn't matter. What you're looking for is like nails or screws or any type of metal objects like that. The tread on these tires have to be a DOT standard of at least 230 seconds to be legal. Publix likes to keep a standard of 430 seconds.
Lug nut.
And the rims, they're also properly mounted to the hub with 10 lug nuts. All the lug nuts are tight. You have to individually touch each one. There's no rust trails or spider cracking coming from the lug nuts, which would indicate two loose or too tight. There's no exposed thread in between the lug nut and the rim. Now we have your valve stems right here. There's two, one on each rim. They're not bent, broke, cracked. Here, no leaks. Valve stem caps are these air lines. The air lines are no cuts, no frizz. Here, no leaks. What these air lines do is they maintain 100 psi air pressure in these tires. If they do not, then the air inflation light at the front of the trailer will come on and inform you that you have an air leak. You'd call this tandem out just as you did this one. Right here is your control arm bracket assembly. It's properly mounted, not bent, broken, cracked, and welds are intact. At the end of each one of these nuts and bolts is your control arm. Each control arm is straight. It's not bent, broken, cracked. They're properly mounted. This is a sliding tandem. This tandem, it has to be the rear axle. The center of the rear axle has to be at this point, which is 41 feet from the kingpin or ahead of it. It cannot be behind it if you're loaded or it's a DOT violation. To achieve this, to slide them, you have to push this button in, and when you do, these pins will retract. And then you get inside the tractor, remove only the tractor brake, release it, and then you can pull forward or reverse to achieve the desired position that you need. And once it is, you come back and you pull this button back out, and those pins have to retract or extend at least 1 inch. Okay, right here you have a mud flap. It has proper distance from the tire. It's not ripped, torn, or dangling. It's properly mounted to the mud flap bracket. The bracket's not bent, broken, cracked, it's properly mounted. Back here, your ABS light. ABS light, properly mounted, no cracks, no moisture. If this light comes on and stays on, you have an ABS malfunction, and you take it to the shop and get it fixed right away. You still drive, you need to deadline the trailer as soon as you get back. Here is a red marker light. It's properly mounted, no cracks, no moisture. At the top of the trailer, you have 5 red marker lights, are clearance lights. Marker lights are at the bottom, clearance lights at the top. They are properly mounted, no cracks, no moisture. Down below on the door, you have 4 white DOT reflective tape. They're properly mounted to the door. They're not ripped or peeling. The door is properly mounted. All rivets are present. There's no holes in it that could damage your freight. You have suspension cables, one on each side, to assist you to lower and raise this door, for it is very heavy. Down here you have your handle, your pull strap, and your latch. They are all properly mounted. They're not bent, broke, or cracked. At the bottom of the door, there's red and white DOT reflective tape on the door and on the ICC bar. They're not bent, broke, or they're not cut, ripped, or peeling. They're intact. The strap has no knots in it. Also, you want to make sure that during the test you will unlock this and you'll open the door and you'll look inside. You have no freight to secure and you have no holes in the floor, the roof, or the sidewalls. And you'll demonstrate the shutting of the door. On the bumper, you can see that you have 4 red tail lights. They're all properly mounted, no cracks, no moisture. They act as your 4-ways, turn signals, running lights, and brake lights. ICC bar is properly mounted. It's not bent 3 inches in or 3 inches out, which would be a DOT violation. All nuts and bolts are present and they're tight. Your permanent tag is properly mounted and legible, and above it is your tag light. It's clear in color, no cracks, no moisture. It's properly mounted.